Well, the time is just gone 17 minutes past 4 p.m. on this beautiful day of Ramadan, the 4th of Ramadan, this Monday afternoon, as we head towards the end of another glorious day here in South Africa, enjoying this beautiful and this blessed month of Ramadan. This is the Iftar Drive. I am Inayat Wani with you. I'll be with you right until the time of the Adhan in Johannesburg, which will signal the end of day 4 of Ramadan and the time of Iftar, inshallah. So I'll be with you all the way, and we will be covering a number of issues, quite a mixed bag, from the spiritual to the local to international. And this is what the Iftar Drive is going to look like throughout the entire month of Ramadan. But right now, we're going across to join by energy expert, Brother Adil Inchabaleng, and we are taking an insight into the not so new electricity minister. Brother Adil, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Kareem to you, my brother, and we trust and hope that you are enjoying the beauty of this wonderful month of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum so much, Brother Inayat.
Yes, Jazakallah for your time, Adil. I think there's a slight breakup in communication, but I'm sure things will improve. And clearly, there is a lot at this point in time playing out in the electricity space. We see the electricity minister on a road show, visiting all the power stations, trying to establish exactly what the issues are. But, like the last time, when we spoke with the appointment of Andre de Ruyter, you gave us an insight into Andre de Ruyter. And perhaps let's take a look at your thoughts with the new electricity minister, Adil.
Look, the electricity minister is somebody who's not almost new. He's worked in the presidency heading infrastructure, which means his main focus was on planning as well as infrastructure programs that affect South Africa and the economy. And I think before he was appointed, he did release a paper, which was quite a very intense paper looking at the whole South African infrastructure environment, from rail right through to water sanitation, looking at it from public infrastructure, your roads, your current bulk infrastructure that is provided by the country, water, sewage, electricity, all in general. And then part of the conclusion was without adequate electricity, none of this infrastructure that we have in South Africa functions at its optimal. So that's what actually sort of launched him into the space of the energy just before he was appointed, in a way. And I
Yes.
think, in my view, I mean, this is what I said in one of the interviews, and I was with him on the panel, to say that when they wrote the specification and the role of a Minister of Electricity, it was with somebody like him in mind, and he blushed about it. But I mean, I could tell that it was already a done deal. He was going to be appointed, and he's got the capability. He's an engineer, civil engineer to say, and he brings with him, sort of a coat of skills that would help. He's young, he's agile. As you have seen him for the last 2 weeks, he's been running around literally on a daily basis in power stations, which we haven't seen with any minister before in taking up a portfolio where the first few days of their, assignment, they would give such intense priority on any project. So the minister himself, I mean, he's got currently, I believe he's got 2 doctorates, focusing on variety of the subjects that he's got doctorates on. He's an intelligent human being, and he's been literally putting his ear on the ground. He's not coming in with bluffing or issues that are not going to resolve electricity. He has now, as we speak, been able to reduce the last almost 6 to 8 months of this catastrophic load shedding stage 6, which Andre de Ruyter left at ESCOM as a mess. He came in within 2-3 weeks. He's able to literally smooth the electricity availability factor. And he's made sure that there is a reduction in load shedding, which is a huge relief on most people in the country. So I think he's a lovely human being. We congratulate him for taking such energy and spirit to lead us in this energy space.
Well, certainly, and also when one looks at Minister Ramakgopa looking at some of the statements that he's been making, and he's been hitting the ground quite hard running, but also making a statement that load shedding would not be ended through an act of God, but by getting the units back online, and that appears to be the focus. And even if we've got to, I know Andre de Ruyter was the one issue, but also comparing him to the likes of Pravin Gordhan, where we've seen a lot of empty rhetoric coming through from Pravin Gordhan. Minister Ramakgopa seems to be, quite candid, quite honest, quite upfront, and say things as they are.
Yeah, he's been able to do that very astonishingly so. I mean, in one of the visits, he reprimanded the management as well as the staff, by the way, of it was Tutuka power station. And he says, look, this is unacceptable that you would have a power station functioning at a 15% capacity in terms of its production, which means 85% of its available capacity is not functioning. And he took them to task and says, this has to be changed. What are the problems and what can be done? What support do you need from government and executive management in order to turn the situation around? So he's been very much hands-on, and in a very encouraging way. Unlike most of the previous predecessors over the last 3 years who never took an effort to visit power stations. When they visited power stations, they would come there and give us 3-hour lectures on corruption and people buying things in Eskom that were not supposed to be bought. And this one has no time for all of that. He's focusing purely on ensuring that they can return the power stations back to operation and operability. So it's been an encouraging feat to see that he's taken his job seriously and that he understands now the fundamentals of electricity. Of course, he's not going to be the man responsible for fixing the problems at the engineering level, but he at least now has set the tone and has given the mandate clearly to say, bring back this closed down, and some of them who have been literally just abandoned power stations back into operation.
Ariel, what are some of the urgent interventions that he needs to get cracking on immediately?
Look, immediately he needs to focus on those 13 power stations. The most critical ones being currently the nuclear power station that now needs to be given massive support in terms of ensuring that we return that 1,000 megawatts of the nuclear power build that is currently offline due to the process whereby they were installing any equipment where it was a steam conversion equipment. That was actually a steam generator equipment that was being installed at currently in Cape Town for the nuclear power station. He needs to focus on that. He needs to focus on the other power stations. Kusile is in a mess. Currently, there's only several units or so, 2 or so, and there's huge capacity shortage out of Kusile. Medupi right now is one of the best performing power stations in the country at 75%, around 70-75%, if I'm sure, in terms of energy availability factor, which is by far one of the best, which means it has achieved its intended goal. Remember when they built with Medupi and Kusile, they were built as what they call the Big Six. They have some of the biggest power stations right now in the world. And when they built them, they intended them to be producing 10,000 megawatts. So if you're looking at what Medupi is doing right now, it's already reaching its almost full capacity threshold of producing sufficient electricity. So that has been very encouraging. But all other power stations are struggling right now as we speak within South Africa. Kusile, built at the same time with Medupi, had a blow-up in December where about 5 units went offline. As a result, they have been unavailable since then. And he's been insisting on his visit that those units must be brought back into line as soon as possible because we're heading for winter now.
Yes, and Ariel, just looking at some of the other issues, and clearly, the corruption has been a major talking point within Eskom, and even the revelations that came through from Andre de Ruyter, but also at the same time looking at things like sabotage and the deliberate use of substandard coal. All these things, that have been actually plaguing the power utility, looking at a person like Minister Ramokgopa, and I know he's made a few statements, but just how much can he go, or how far can he actually go? Besides, obviously getting support, because he definitely needs support, like from the likes of the police services. Arrests have got to be made. All of these things need to be fixed as well.
He's been smart, and several times he was confronted on the issue of corruption. And he stayed out of it completely. He says, look, currently I'm just evaluating power stations. I am not yet in the ins and dirty part of the work itself, which is looking at peripheral issues. So he's been focusing on trying to release the current pressure on the economy as well as on the infrastructure and the ordinary people of South Africans. So issues of corruption, I think he's been very cautious about it. He doesn't want to delve into that space because, as you know, already two ministers, including a very senior official within government, was already, suspected of being involved in Eskom at the corruption level. So I think he took a decision to say, look, I'm going to stay out of the corruption controversy, and I'm going to be focusing on the fundamentals, which is restoring, energy provision and energy generation, and not interested in going into issues that were going to become controversial for his position right now. So he's been very smart. He doesn't want to entertain issues of corruption right now, based on what he's been asked.
Well, let's see what develops, Adil. But it's always an absolute pleasure having you on and gathering your thoughts and the manner in which you unpack the topic that we are normally discussing. But for now, we wish you all the best, my brother. Have yourself a wonderful Ramadan still ahead, and inshallah, looking forward to more engagement with you, inshallah, as time goes by. But for now, we wish you well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Adil in Chabaleng with us this afternoon, which means the time is headed for around 4:30 p.m. We are heading for an air break, and we also have got the Asar Azan coming up at around 4:40. We will be joined by Dr. Levi Ndau, independent political analyst. We'll be talking with Faiz Jacobs, Member of Parliament for the African National Congress. The ANC is considering adopting a documented documentation with regards to a group of its white, Indian, and colored members. This is all part of a strategy to regain the 2/3 majority it once enjoyed. Will this ever happen? Will it materialize? We will unpack all of that after the Asr Azan in the Asr Salah. We also have got Professor Jeff Halper out of Israel. We will be talking about the live protests, about the protests after Benjamin Netanyahu had sacked the defense minister, and also an insight into the iftar in the Cup. It's called Buka Ani Cup. So all of that to come just before the Nasiha and the Dua that will take us through to the time of iftar at around 18:15 here in Johannesburg.
What's it been like for your very first fast?
It's been very difficult. Especially not drinking water. That I think is the most difficult thing not to do. Yeah, that's been hard.
Yeah, and therefore clearly you have a sense of a mental preparation and a physical preparation. Like when you say, well, this Ramadan I'm going to fast compared to before, there were certain steps you took, right? What were those steps?
I think that I put all my trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for that reason I'm able to fast now. I don't think that I would have done it if I didn't have the attention, because it is hard and it definitely drains you. So if you're not really mentally prepared, I don't know if it's like, not for me at least. It would have been very much more difficult for me.
I think you're right that it can't just be about just do your best and it'll be fine. There has to be a why behind it, and the why in this case, of course, is like one is being a Muslim and understanding why you fast and understand the benefits and the fact that it's an injunction that you want to commit to, and no matter how difficult it is. Otherwise, it's simply telling someone to stay hungry, and that's not the same thing. The level of motivation is completely different, isn't it?
Exactly. I think when you realize that this is something that you have to do, that this is something that Allah has told you to do, then it gets easier. Like every time that I talk to non-Muslim at my work and I tell them that I'm fasting or stuff like that, they're always like, oh, I could never give up water, or I could never do that. But it's yeah.
Yeah, which shows you that human beings are resilient. If they really need to do something, they actually can, and we take a lot for granted, right? So I mean, of course, fasting is a major part of Ramadan. It very much defines Ramadan and sets it apart from many other months in the world, right? But that's not the only thing that happens in Ramadan. What else are you doing in what we call now my first Ramadan?
I spend my time getting closer to Allah, and I try and spend as much time in a mosque as I can. I work nighttime in the afternoon, so I can't. When I have lectures, it's usually around 5 p.m. And that's the time that where I'm at work. So it gets difficult to get to the mosque every day, but I'll do my best. I'm doing my best.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty.